Welcome to the first episode of the Comedy.law podcast. I'm Max Langley, and here with me are Shirelle and Keith, and we are going to try to put on a decent show for you. Today, we're going to be talking about My Cousin Vinny.
Comedy.law, yeah, we're here to play. Max, Shirelle, Keith leading the way. Lawyers with laughs and jokes to slay. Tune in, folks, it's Comedy.law today.
My Cousin Vinny, which is Shirelle's favorite movie, and Keith saw it for the first time last night, right? Is that?
Well, it being my first time is correct. Favorite? Nah.
It's not your favorite yet?
No, not yet. Maybe
What
I
do you
haven't
rate
watched
it? What do you rate it out of 10 on your honesty scale?
Maybe like a 7.
Oh, that's pretty good.
So you're saying you have actually seen it once and it made a 7?
Yeah, it was actually funny. I didn't expect it to be funny because, I kind of doubt Max's taste in movies. So I was a little skeptical at first, but it was actually pretty good. I liked it.
I was a little skeptical at first.
It's actually Keith's favorite movie, though. He's watched it about 500 times, no joke. About 500 times. He can quote the entire movie, and we've done that trivia. You can go on like IMDb and you do the trivia. We put it on as hard as it goes, and I'll ask him the questions, and he'll just boom, 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 get every single one right. Like, what is the name of the town? Like stuff that is pretty obscure, and he'll nail all of it because he just loves the movie. I don't know why. Why do you love the movie?
Well, I love the movie because it talks about justice and it uses the jury system to get there.
Of the jury.
Jury system to get there, and I think there's so much to learn from the movie. But I usually don't watch movies more than once. Maybe I've seen 3 more than once, and this one certainly I've seen a lot, which I enjoy it every time I watch it.
Yeah, and well, the other one would be A Few Good Men, right?
That's a good one.
Yeah, you've seen that one a few times. And I don't know what your third one is that you've seen a few times. What is it?
Well, probably not a good idea. Whatever it is, not a good idea.
Not a good idea, I see. Not a good idea, yeah. Some things you gotta...
Maybe the Green Mile. I like the Green Mile.
Yeah.
That movie made me cry.
Michael Clark Duncan, right, Shirelle? That's the big guy. Man, he is phenomenal.
Yeah.
He was so good.
He passed away not too long ago.
Yeah, he passed away not too long ago.
Well, the great thing about My Cousin Vinny is you have Herman Munster as the judge. And
in his last movie role, right?
Last role, he did such a great job. And you've got Joe Pesci, you've got Marissa Tomei, who won an Oscar for her performance.
Mona Lisa Vito, a picture-perfect painting of a performance right there.
They do such a great job of character playing, but there's so much to learn from the movie, and it's so realistic. They had legal counsel involved to talk about the different aspects of the movie, and it really it is so true to life.
So getting a trial on next Monday is true to life?
That's not true to life.
Yeah, it takes what, about 2 to 3 years in real life to get a trial. I mean, criminals faster, but it takes a while. And the fact that they were able to say, I'm putting this for trial on Monday, that's a little bit of a stretch.
It's a stretch in a lot of ways, but they had to make the movie, and that is part of making the movie.
And it's kind of like what I like to say, what I've posted on LinkedIn the past few days is that lawyering is an art, a science, and sausage making. Would you agree with that?
Well, the saying is we have the worst civil justice system in the world,
Yeah.
except all the others. And so you're right. ultimately, and the thing that's great about the movie is it shows you it's so important to be yourself. When you have a trial, when
Yeah, Vinny
you're,
was himself.
say again,
Vinny was himself.
Vinny was himself, and Marissa Tomei was herself,
Yeah.
and the judge was himself, and you know, the jury.
Jury.
The prosecutor, the job of the prosecutor is to get a conviction, but ultimately, if the person is not guilty, the prosecutor should do what they did here and dismiss the charges.
Yeah, that was crazy. Shirelle, were you surprised by that ending where the prosecutor was actually the one that dismissed all charges?
No, because I felt like, at the end of the day, that pretty much, like, what else can you do? You've
There's
been
nothing else
proven
to do.
wrong.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
stuck.
Yeah, I think the only part that I thought, I'm not an attorney, so you guys can tell me, when the prosecutor brought forth the expert witness, and then when Joe Pesci's character tried to object, and
Yeah,
it seemed like he had a really
he had
good,
a great objection.
objection,
Yeah.
but then the judge was like, "Oh no,
Well, that's called, but my take on that is that you've got a certain level of stock with the judge, and Vinny had very low stock with Judge Chamberlain Howler. So he had nothing left, no credibility left. So if you lose your credibility with the judge, you're bound to lose those kind of motions that you should win because
Well,
he should have won that.
Shirelle is so right. You know, that expert should never, first of all, been a surprise.
Yeah.
And that was definitely, you can't have an FBI investigator, expert, and he's done all these tests on the rubber and the tires and the tire marks, and he knows all about the tires. You can't have that. And then the objection that Vinny makes, he says, "Hey, I need to see a report. I need a little time. I need to be able to have an expert to oppose this expert." Well, he was exactly right. And of course, that motion would have been granted 100% of the time. 100 times out of 100, you would win that motion. And there would have been a continuance, but we couldn't have a break in the movie.
Well, and Vinny really couldn't catch a break much of the movie. He did all this. You know, I, I'm trying trying to think of what I'm trying to say. He did. He was trying to get out of town, right? Trying to get the case over and get out of town. So he needed to get the trial wrapped up as soon as possible. So it was actually a benefit to him to have the expert come in on uh, when he did, rather than waiting a few days. Because if you wait a few days, then he's in trouble.
Yeah, the problem was he was practicing 16 weeks, not 16 years.
Yeah. That violates Model Rule 3.2, I think, right? The duty of candor to the tribunal. We can't lie to the judge about how much experience we have.
Yeah, you have a duty of candor to the judge, and that makes great sense. And the whole system is supposed to be to achieve justice. We have this adversary system where the idea is you fight, you have in that fight you have the truth emerge. Well, the whole idea here is that when the truth emerges, which is what the prosecutor did, Shirelle, is truth has emerged and it's time to dismiss the charges.
Truth. Now, that's a word that comes from Old England, from our ancestors. It means verdict. Verdict means truth, Shirelle.
Okay.
We're going to ask you to come through with a verdict of murder in the first degree.
Well, that's the whole idea, is that you had voir dire, and
Have you
of
heard
course
that word before, Shirelle?
I have. Now I've heard all these terms before. I just don't remember what they all mean.
I don't remember what this one means either. Isn't it like to speak or something, voir dire?
In Texas, we say voir dire. In French, they
Voir
say
dire.
voir dire.
Voir
Voir
dire.
dire in French means to speak the truth. And so the whole idea is that when you voir dire a witness, you are trying to get to the truth. Is this really an expert? Was Marissa Tomei really an expert on automobiles?
It's a bullshit question.
And that was the whole idea of the prosecutor being able to voir dire the witness.
And you catch things when you watch a movie for the 75th time, like I did. I actually caught it for the first time that Vinny was the one that understood the tire marks at the end. Vinny realized that only positive traction could have made that clean of a tire mark when one tire is up high and one is down low. You need this stability to create that tire mark. So Vinny recognizes it. He doesn't even have to talk to Mona Lisa Vito about it because he knows that she's going to recognize it too because of all those years. Remember how Vinny was like, he'll learn procedure later because he was busy in Marissa Tomei's dad's mechanic shop. So that's what happened. Like Vinny became an expert too on automobiles and recognized that was able to pick it up from her pictures.
Well, you made a great point, and Shirelle, this Mona Lisa Vito, I've often wondered why they called her Mona Lisa. Um, there has to be something in there.
She got the Oscar for it, Shirelle. The Oscar.
Mm.
Best
What year
Supporting
did it?
Actress,
What year did it come out?
1992.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then Joe Pesci, the guy that plays Vinny, he came out with a CD singing songs based on the movie.
Oh,
And it got very terrible reviews, but
I would assume that.
well, he used to moonlight as a singer at like bars, like a jazz club singer.
Oh,
That's what he did before acting.
I only know him from Home Alone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's in a lot though. He's also in Lethal Weapon. He's in what's that movie with Robert De Niro?
Good guy,
The
Goodfellas.
Oh yeah, he's in Goodfellas. Yeah. Yeah, he's in those like mobster movies from the early 90s.
It
Okay.
was it was very different to see him in this movie. He plays a very different character. He's not the tough guy. He has a few scenes of tough guy when he's going to fight the guy who was playing pool with Mona Lisa. Um, but ultimately, he's pretty much a comedian in this movie, and he has some serious roles, but most of his roles are about comedy.
And I think he really shines in cross-examination in this movie. Wouldn't you agree that when he's doing cross-examination, that's when he is in his element?
Well, he's so natural. I mean, he's really him. He's just, and the thing that's so key about that is he's relating things. He's doing two things. He's letting the witness indicate what they want to say, and it's in words that the jury understands, like, spinning the tires in the Alabama mud.
Yeah.
Um,
Or cooking grits.
and how long it takes to cook a grit. You cook and Vinny, of course, didn't know anything about grits until he went in the diner and he said, "How do you cook them?" And he internalized that, and he was able to ask the witness, "Hey, what were you doing making your grits, and how long does it take water to sink into a grit in your kitchen?"
Yeah, and Vinny, he had a good memory because he didn't write down a whole lot. He had a pencil, which was weird, a pencil and a yellow pad. We got to get him a blue pen. But one of our favorite scenes, Shirelle, was where he goes, "Did you get those from the same guy who sold Jack his beans? What are they like magic grits? Does gravity cease to exist in your kitchen?" I like that one.
Yeah.
Have you ever cooked a grit, Shirelle?
You know, I have, but they never come out right when I do it, so I gave up.
Oh, you gave up?
Or either that or I just do instant grits. Instant grits are much easier.
No self-respecting Southerner will cook instant grits.
I'm a self-respecting northerner, so it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, you probably never heard of a grit then.
She
I
said that she sprinkles a little bit of sugar
sugar.
in her grits.
Yeah, no self-respecting Southerner would put sugar on the grit.
Well, my dad actually he liked it more with salt, and he was the grit maker in our household growing up. So I just ate whatever he made, and then I just add my sugar on top.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that witness, I lived on grits. I had grits every day. I
So you
never
would
had
get
just grits and eggs. I would always have sausage or bacon also.
like a big pan. I'm talking a big pan, and it was just filled with grits. And then he would eat the entire thing. And it was just like, what else do you want to eat? And he just eats all the grits. And he's like, that's all I want. Well, sometimes it was a plain Whopper and grits, right?
Yeah. Yeah, getting back to the movie, the great thing about the movie is it's such a formal scene, the setting in the courtroom. If you walk into a federal courtroom, you're going to get chill bumps. It's
Yeah.
very formal, and that courtroom, the scene was perfect. The wood floors, the high bench, and the formality of the judge sitting up above everyone. And
And he was already
you know,
tall enough. He was already like 6'6".
yeah,
So,
yeah, and then Vinny throws his legal pad on the desk or his briefcase, which was thin, and he learns as he goes. You need to put those things on the floor. When he jumps on the desk and asks Marissa Tomei, Mona Lisa Vito, to explain uh, how do you know from the tire tracks from a picture that this is a particular vehicle that made this? Well, he jumps up on the desk. You would never do that in a courtroom, but of course it works in the movie. In the courtroom, you're pretty timid with where you step.
yeah. You don't want to mess anything up in a federal or even a state courtroom because you're going to get in big trouble, Buster. But we have this amazing thing now that was not featured in the movie, which is called technology. When Ralph does his confession, he says, I shot the clerk. I
Hmm.
shot the clerk. And he says it as a question. But now a modern confession would be videotaped. So you would get those enunciations, you'd get those question marks.
Well, you went way out there when you said Ralph. That's Billy. He happens to be played by Ralph Macchio,
Yeah.
uh, but it's Benny Gambino.
Yeah.
Billy Gambino.
Billy.
Hmm.
All right, Sherelle, what were some of your favorite scenes? Did you like any of them?
Well, the scene when they both were in jail and they were meeting Vinny for the first
Oh,
time.
you like that one?
I guess they were innuendos, but not intentionally. Like when he was
Yeah, yeah,
talking
yeah.
to the friend, I was cracking up during that part because I'm like, oh my god, this kid thinks he's getting ready to be assaulted. But it was really good. That was like my favorite part. Um, trying to think of what else I liked about it. I mean, I
Well,
did.
on that one, Sherelle, I mean, it would never happen in real life. You would never have a lawyer put into the prison cell with the defendants.
Hey, he bribed him. What are you talking about?
Well, he bribed him after the fact. He said,
Did you see
"Thanks
the
for
facial
helping."
expression on the security guard? It was like, what? Why are you giving me money?
But he took it.
He did
Yeah,
take it.
he did. He did take it.
Yeah, that part was really good. And then I guess I could understand the friend's fear of losing the case when Vinny first got there and he was
Yeah.
losing terribly.
I'd be afraid too. Yeah.
Right. I definitely would have found another attorney.
Yeah.
So
What
that
about
part was like
what about the public defender? Would you have gone with him?
he was terrible.
Oh no.
I felt like he was, I mean, he was a little tiny bit better than Vinny was initially, but
Yeah.
once Vinny got his footing in the courtroom, he was fine, you know. So I definitely would have done what the kid did and switched right back over to
But
Vinny.
that
And
nervousness is real, Sherelle. Let me tell you, all of us, even seasoned veterans, even Keith walking into a federal courthouse and getting ready to speak, he gets nervous. I get nervous. We don't mumble. We sometimes stumble a little bit, but eventually we do get our footing, like you said. We eventually catch our footing. So we eventually catch our groove. It takes a little while. It takes a little while to get that engine revved up, right?
Well, you saw it in the movie. You didn't see a lot of it, but the preparation. Vinny interviews the witnesses and
Yeah.
he has the pictures and he has determined what the witness had for breakfast and what he cooked. So all that preparation, we tend to spend years doing that, but we have to have that theme. And you're right, Vinny determined that theme right at the very end. He always knew that there had to be other people there. He didn't know the evidence, the tire marks, the positive traction, the ability to make those marks. But that same thing happens in real life. You do the disclosures, the discovery, and you have to get everything ready, and hopefully you're able to convey to the jury exactly what you're trying to convey.
And what you're trying to convey, Sherelle, is a ton of bricks, like my wall right there. You see, a lot of bricks. And they're going to show you their bricks. And let me tell you, they're as thin as this playing card right here. As thin as this playing card.
Well, that's the whole idea of how you attack in this case, the prosecution case, but whoever's on the other side, your opponent, your role is to attack that, create questions, or destroy that if you can. And that's as important as showing your side of the case, is being able to attack the other side's uh, theory of the case.
And you got to know the other sides. That's why you get that disclosure. Remember when Marissa Tomei said, it's called disclosure, you blank head. And so you get all this stuff, and I think it's called the Brady Act for federal court, but that's what you get in uh, criminal cases. You get all of the prosecution's documents and access to the witnesses so that there will be no surprises.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the whole idea about justice is in the criminal sphere, you have that mandatory disclosure and a lot of that happens in the civil cases. We've adopted part of that disclosure. We do discovery, we send interrogatories, requests for production, admissions, whatever. But we also have a component of disclosure, and many times people really do not do what they should do there.
Yeah,
And
many
the right
times.
thing is to insist that disclosures are made properly.
That's what happened, Shirelle, and just everyday garden variety litigation. The other side doesn't give the whole banker's box like what Vinny got. Remember, he got the banker's box with the notes and all the paper. Well, people do disclosure now digitally, but they don't give everything. They don't give all the documents. They don't give the necessary items that we need to be able to evaluate their case, and then which would help us evaluate ours. People like to play kind of hide the ball, and not enough people uh, poke and prod and say, "Hey, you haven't given us what you need to give us.
And let's, Shirelle, focus on that for a while. What you do in your everyday life, disclosure, sharing of information is so important. You have to know what the position of people might be on a particular issue, right?
So, are there no like repercussions? Say, if you find out that the opposing counsel didn't disclose certain bits of information, what do you do in cases like that?
Well, that's a great question, and you're always going to find that. Hopefully, you get more disclosure earlier rather than later, and you need to do at least two things right away. You need to call them out, and you don't need to be difficult, but you need to say, "What about this, this, and this?" And when you if you do not get the information, which often you won't, you need to get the judge involved. And that should happen probably a lot more than it does. But when you threaten to bring things before the judge, you tend to get more information. If you have to actually bring it, then the judge is likely to require someone to provide that information.
And in the surety claim handling field, you're often pre-litigation. So what you can do, and what I've seen done, is that the claim handler will say, you haven't produced these documents, and therefore the claim is denied. So I've seen that done before. It's usually you have to like ask a few times first before you do that, right? And document the file really well. But if they haven't produced it after the like sixth try, you can say you failed to cooperate with the surety, you failed to provide the documents, therefore the claim is denied.
Well, like the movie, you know, Vinny had a theory of the case, um, which we know kind of fell apart at the very end, but it was 90% correct. The thing that fell apart was it was not an identical car. It wasn't the same make and model. It was a little bit different car that was able to make the marks. But what we need to do as surety claims professionals is recite what we think went on and provide the opportunity to the claimant or the obligee, whoever's involved, to say, "Hey, these are the issues that I have with your theory of the case." It's always better to share that as you go along, and as it evolves, say, "Okay, here's the new theory of a little bit different issue that we have."
Yeah, and that's why we love surety because it has such a vast array of storytelling, right? There's a story to every surety case, and we get to learn that, and we get to grapple with that, and we get to test ourselves on that. We get to test their case and test our principal's case. And the surety is kind of that monkey in the middle, right? Because there's the principal over here and the obligee over here, and we're kind of in the middle. And it gets difficult to play that role. It gets a little bit exhausting sometimes, but you keep doing it and you keep receiving that information, and then you come up with your story of the case, and you might only be 90% right, but 90% is pretty good. That's pretty close. And that's what, like Keith said, that's where Vinny was about 90%. That's pretty good. You want to go 90 to 95%.
Well, and Max mentioned the importance of getting along with the judge, and Sherelle, you talked about how to get the full story, how to get the full disclosure, and the judge is there to pretty much referee this fight that we're engaged in. And it is very, very important to get along with the judge, with the referee, so that hopefully that referee creates an environment for everyone to share the information. The rules now say, hey, the purpose of the rules is to, and this duty is on everyone, the plaintiff, the defendant, and the judge, to share the information and to do so as quickly and cheaply as possible. And we have a horrible, horrible system. It takes a long time to get that information shared. But again, that system that we have is better than all the other systems that they've invented to date. They keep tweaking the rules to try to make this more efficient, better, faster, cheaper. And that's the whole idea. And the idea that we have is to try to show the referee, the judge, hey, we're trying to get there better, faster, cheaper, and here's how to do that.
Speaking
So I
of
have a
tweaking the
question.
rules, go ahead, Sherelle.
I was just going to ask, as far as going back to the objection that Vinny had made for that expert witness. So when it comes to objections, is it that the judge kind of makes the decision as to whether to sustain it or to overrule it? Or are there any rules that kind of guide the judge to say, hey, this is what you need to do when an objection is made?
The rules guide the judge. The federal rules are the best rules on that, and they have what's called Daubert, and Daubert is a case from 1992 of all times. So it's the exact same year as My Cousin Vinny, but that's where the U.S. Supreme Court promulgates these rules of how to check scientific testimony. So there are about five different steps that they go through, and they check each one of them, and they see if it'll come in after the test has been performed.
Well, Shirelle, I think you have two questions as I heard it. One is generally what guides the judge in making a ruling, and what Max talked about is your second point, specifically in this case on the expert, and that's how the Daubert case uh, was decided. What is expert testimony? But on the first issue, yes, the judge has a lot of guidance, and it's up to the advocates to point out that guidance, to talk about what should be admitted or not, what is information that the jury should receive, and the whole purpose of the rules is to try to not inflame or influence the jury wrongfully and instead get a fair decision on the merits. That's very, very difficult to do. But on item one, there's a lot of guidance for the judge, and it's up to, when it's a close call, it's up to advocacy. And that's why it's so important to try to be on the judge's good side, which it's important anyway because you want to be better, faster, cheaper, which is what the judge is trying to get to also. And if Vinny had a situation that would never arise in real life because you would know about who the experts are. They have to produce reports. They have to tell you what they've written on before, what they testified, all that stuff. So you have the ability to determine um, whether the expert should be countered with another expert, um, and that's very important. That's a huge area. The jury is going to believe someone who has a lot of letters after their name,
Or a white coat.
and if they have certifications and training, okay, well, what they say is the truth. Well, it may not be. It probably is not.
Junk
Um,
science.
anyway, there you go.
Yeah, the idea of the scientific evidence rule is to get rid of what's called junk science. So there's this scientific evidence that vaccines cause autism, right? And there's people that are willing to testify about that. And that's one of them that we studied in law school. We studied those guys that went out and went all around the world and were testifying in court saying vaccines cause autism. we want to get that out of here because it's not real. That's not real science. That's bunk. That's not helpful to the jury. And that's the big prong is it helpful to the trier of fact, which is the jury? Is it helpful to them? It's not helpful to be swarmed by this so-called scientific evidence that is a bunch of baloney.
Right.
Well, the great thing about the movie, and I think something we all like, is that there was finality. We
Yeah.
get to a result, a resolution, and that's what people are looking for when they have disputes is they want someone to call the balls and strikes and declare a winner. And that's what's so important about the jury system. We didn't get to see it here in this show because the evidence became so clear that the prosecutor dismissed the charges. But the great thing about a jury trial is you're going to get a jury verdict. You're going to get an answer. Now, the judge may tweak that. That may go for a while, and that's part of the process. But the finality that we had here is so important. People want an answer.
And it's not always great to get a jury verdict. That's why some people choose what's called alternative dispute resolution, ADR. So you could have an arbitrator privately decide it and confidentially decide it. That's not very common in the criminal sphere, but it is very common in the civil sphere. And so anything surety is pretty much subject to ADR, which includes mediation and arbitration. And we didn't see either of them in the movie because they weren't that big in 1992. But now in 2025, mediation and arbitration are big time.
Could you just tell me the difference between arbitration and mediation?
Yeah, sure. A mediation is all voluntary, and the if the parties leave with a resolution, then the parties will have made their own resolution. And an arbitration is usually going to be binding. There is non-binding, but that's just kind of weird. I don't understand that too much. Uh, the binding arbitration, though, is the much more common one. And that's where a private person, a lawyer usually, will decide the merits of your case and will decide the dollar amount that the party who prevailed is entitled to.
And the
Okay.
whole idea is, Shirelle, both mediation and arbitration are creatures of agreement. What do the parties agree to? And pretty much all the time, what the parties agree to is going to be a better resolution than a judgment from a judge or a jury. And
Those are
mediation
unpredictable, right? Is that why?
is very, well, that's part.
Yeah.
And mediation is trying to get to an agreement by the parties. And as Max said, that's, voluntary. You at the end of the day, or 2 days, or whatever length of time, is usually a day, you have an opportunity to say yes. And it's an exchange of offers and demands back and forth. And the great thing about mediation is the parties expect that by the end of the day they're going to have reached the finish line. They're going to have a resolution. They might not. There might be a decision by the mediator on what the answer should be. And then, once again, the parties are free to say yes or no to that. It's not binding, it's not enforceable as a final decision. Arbitration is generally, it's kind of like a trial. You have the presentation of evidence and motions and whatever, and you have a decision maker, a referee calling balls and strikes, and that's the arbitrator. Um, and you may have a panel of arbitrators. You may have three in a large case, but these are ways to try to avoid the going through the litigation process, which we all know is public. And sometimes, many times, the parties don't want to make their dispute public, and they also don't want to experience the time and money involved, which is often quite a bit.
All right, I wanted to talk about the evolving rules. Uh, Keith said that the rules are constantly getting updated, and one big thing that the rules are getting updated to grapple with is technology. Like we've got so many documents now, so many more documents. You see, everything that Vinny had, or everything the prosecutor had in that case, could fit into one banker's box. You see that in the movie?
Yeah.
Now the average production size will fit about a UPS truck load of banker's boxes. So going with paper is not the way to go. You want to go with technology. You want to have a computer program to help you sort through those documents and to smartly look those up. The one of the rules that's interesting that to me is that there was that disclosure rule in 1992 in the movie where the prosecution had to give over all of the files to the defense. The very interesting thing, though, is that Alabama was not the last state to come out with the disclosure rule. The disclosure rule came out in other states after Alabama. So Alabama was somewhere in the middle. But now every state has that disclosure rule, which is really good. And they even have it as an initial disclosure, which means when the case first starts, the disclosure has to happen. You turn over your stuff right when the case starts. And that helps a lot because it takes a long time to go through all the documents.
I can imagine.
And Sherelle, the issue is, the rules evolve to try to keep up with what we're doing. When you are handling a matter, how much of your information exchange is electronic? How much of it is emails? How much of it is phone calls? Back in the day, we did letters. Usually today, either you don't do a letter, or if you do a letter, you email it, right, Sherelle?
Yeah, pretty much. They get it faster, and then you immediately have a record of the fact that you sent it. So it's more efficient.
That's why I fax everything.
Yeah. Some of us started practicing before computers and email and faxes and things of that nature. And the great thing about faxes, they're kind of like, what's that disappearing message, Max?
Snapchat.
Snapchat.
Yeah, Snapchat.
Faxes are kind of like Snapchat chat in that they disappear.
Yeah.
After 10 years, they're gone. I mean, they fade away. They're kind of like memories, which is why we have a statute of limitations. We want to know what real people say. Hey, what happened on the project? When did it happen? So you can talk about the schedule. You can talk about things you want to hear from people. Well, people's memories are suspect, as we saw in the show. Being able to do the eyewitness. Can you do that at 50 feet? Can you tell how many fingers are in the air? Do you have an ability to discern? So that's why we have the documents to try to guide people. But as Max was saying, you're going to have a lot of data, a whole lot, and you've got to somehow sort through that data. I have never had a trial with more than 50 key documents, maybe 10 really hot documents, but you have thousands, tens of thousands,
or
now
millions.
hundreds of thousands of documents.
Yeah. We had millions in one, and the case lasted, what, 8 years?
Oh wow.
And it went through how many days of arbitration?
60, I say.
60. That's a lot of days of trial. In the case that we saw, it was probably in the movie, what was it, like 5 days of trial?
I
That's what
think it
it
was a
seemed.
day. What do you
Oh, was
think,
it all
Shirelle?
one day?
Yeah, because or maybe two. I don't think it was longer than that.
Oh, I thought he
Yeah.
kept changing his suit.
He changed
Oh,
it to once when he had that ridiculous red suit on.
that was a
Yeah.
good suit. Yeah, I'm going to go with 2 days. I think 2 days is correct.
He got thrown in jail 2 days. So you're saying he was batting 100?
Well, actually, didn't he get thrown in three times? The
Yeah.
first time when he didn't say guilty or not guilty. The second time was before he had the suit, I think, or when he had the suit.
Yeah, that was the first day of trial. The first time was pre-trial, so he got thrown in jail then. One
Oh,
time
yeah.
when he wore the tuxedo, the red tuxedo, and I think there was, oh, and he went to sleep in opening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
And,
So
what did he say, Max?
well, I'll let you do the honors because I want you to tell the story of what happened at your trial in, was it Houston, where they wheeled in the TV? Tell Shirelle that
Yeah.
story real quick.
So what Vinny said, of course, he was sleeping, and the prosecutor was enumerating his evidence, and Billy finally elbowed Vinny and said, "Okay, Vinny, it's time to give your opening." Which, by the way, you would never fall asleep in court, but we know that Vinny did. And then he got up to do his opening and he said, everything that fella, the prosecutor said, is BS. And I think that's the third time, Shirelle, he got thrown in jail for cursing in the courtroom, which you would never do. But yes, we had a trial, and at the conclusion of the trial and after our summation, the other side played that clip of everything that guy just said is BS. It did
And
not go over very well with the jury.
it didn't. Why? What did the jury think?
The jury was a little bit offended by profanity, and given that the fact, we had been very, very serious for 16 weeks in presenting this testimony,
You can't be a
evidence,
comedian
and
for the
data.
first time on week 17. Come on.
And they they were not pleased with the flippant nature of that statement.
And the lawyers had to apologize subsequent to that.
Yeah, and we go back to the whole mediation, arbitration, and a reason that you really want to gravitate to that. And one reason is the cost and time involved, but another is the uncertainty. And there was a punitive damages phase of this trial. There
I mean,
should never have
punishment
been.
damages.
There are a lot of reasons you should not have that, and here you should not have had that, but we did, and they spent their entire time apologizing for that mistake in the opening session, the first part of the trial.
So
so
they
I
had
have a
one of
question.
those boob tube TVs with the big back. Is that what they had? Like, the old ones that the teacher used to bring in third grade?
No, it wasn't quite that big.
Oh.
So if you showed up to court, Keith, with that same suit on that Vinny had the snazzy red number,
Yeah.
would you be held in contempt?
You know, it'd be awfully hard, Sherelle,
No.
for me to do that. But yes, I believe you would you would at least be you would lose all respect with the judge.
And then he would deny your Dalbert motion.
Right. And so if you did that, you probably would not be held in contempt. Contempt is pretty difficult. It was pretty common in My Cousin Vinny, but it's pretty rare for a lawyer to be held in contempt. Usually, you have a motion from the other side. Hey, throw a rock at them, judge. And then you have a response, and you have the whole fight of the he said, she said, whatever. And the judge usually denies everything.
Mm,
It's like
okay.
sanctions motions in discovery. Judges just deny those.
Okay.
All right. It's time to do our wrap up of the week. How do we do the wrap up, Shirelle? How does it go? I don't know. You're running this show, not me.
No, I'm just here for the ride.
I thought you were El Presidente of this thing.
No, I'm just, I'm a co-host.
All right. Well, what do you think for next week? Who should we try to get in the surety world? I'm not saying we can get them, but who should we try to get? If you can, and you don't have to respond right now. You can just, you know, let it kind of roll in the head a little bit. But don't you think we should have like some surety superstar next?
Sure, I don't know any yet.
No, wait, what? Okay, we're
Well,
done. We're
maybe we
done.
can get Joe Pesci and get his thoughts on surety. Um, my wrap up is the great thing that I think the great thing about the movie is what I started with. I think it really teaches a lesson that it's so important to be yourself, and this system that we have with all its imperfections ultimately is the best system available.
Okay.
My wrap up is curiosity. It killed the cat, but it made the trial lawyer. Curiosity is really, really good to become a good trial lawyer. Vinny was very curious. He would ask the grit guy a lot of questions. He would ask the lady with the thick glasses a lot of questions. He would ask Mr. 5 Minute Grits a lot of questions. And he kept on and on and on and on, and he just wanted to know more and more, like a 3-year old. He wanted to know more and more and more, and he asked good questions, and he asked good follow-up questions. A good trial lawyer, to me, is curious.
Okay. Good wrap up, guys.
All
All right,
right.
thank you
Well,
guys.
we'll schedule next week's. We don't have a firm date yet, but we'll let the editing intern. By the way, yeah, Keith, I hired a $15 an hour editing intern. His name is Blaise. He's gonna work with us.
Thanks.
Eric works for zero because I don't know. He likes me, I guess.
Was Eric the one who came up with the theme song?
Yeah,
Max, Shirelle, Keith leading the way.
Oh, I
I
like it.
know.
I've
We need to
been
give him a bonus. If we get big, we give Eric a little chunk. We'll give him a little piece, a little slice.
I've been playing it for people. I really like it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You
I'm
like
trying
the
to
one where it
drum
says
up the
that?
buzz. I want people to listen to the podcast.
Do you like the one where it says
Shirelle Outley, she's the funny queen.
Yeah, but I think we have to think of something else. I don't think I'm funny.
you are the once you get like more comfortable. That's why I told people to watch the later episodes. Once you're in your groove, once you're vibing.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think what is so important about that is our audio and video, which we had challenges with. It's so important for the jury to be able to see and
Yeah.
hear. And we didn't see a lot of visual aids in My Cousin Vinny, but it's so important to whether it's a timeline or a picture of the project or whatever you want to depict, but they've got to be able to hear you and that's why your microphone is so important. And they got to be able to see you. And we have recently, the last 5 years or so, gotten into the whole virtual presentation, and webcams and better microphones. And when you have a really poor microphone and a really poor video camera, it's going to have an impact. I don't care what people would like to do, they would not like to have it impact them. It's going to impact them. So it's always important to have that see and be seen. And when we talk with experts, to talk with them, Max, about their experiences, because that's what the jury wants to hear. They want to hear realism and the results of that curiosity.
Yeah, and we learn through storytelling, and that's the best way to convey information. So juries want to hear those stories. They don't want to hear a whole bunch of citations. We do those citations, but the jury just doesn't want to know the 77 books that agree with you. All right. See
Okay.
you guys next week
Very good.
or sometime soon.
All right.
Right.
Comedy.law, yeah, we're here to play. Max, Shirelle, Keith leading the way. Lawyers with laughs and jokes to slay. Tune in, folks, it's Comedy.law today.